Hello, everybody, and welcome into Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today we are talking to Liberty Star Minerals, an Arizona-based mineral exploration company engaged in the acquisition, exploration, and development of mineral properties in Arizona and the Southwest USA. Joining me today is Gerardo King, the director, Peter O'Haron, the chairman, and Jay Crawford, vice president of field operations. We got the whole team here today. I'm very excited to dive in. We're going to talk about the macro when it comes to gold, silver, and copper, as well as diving, of course, into Liberty Star Minerals and getting all the details there. Gentlemen, it's an honor to have you all on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jesse.
So I want to start off with a conversation on the macro and some recent news when it comes to gold, silver, and copper. Let's start off with gold because it's been performing exceptionally well and is one of the few assets that stood its ground and then proceeded to make new all-time highs in the aftermath of the Liberation Day announcements when the rest of the market was melting down. What do you think are the main catalysts that brought us here? And are we still in the early stages of this bull market? Do you think there's a long way to go? What inning would you say we're in, Gerardo?
So thanks for that question. And I think it's an interesting time, right? I mean, I've been linked to the industry ever since we were seeing gold at 290 announced, now breaking 3,400, currently in the mid 3,300s. It's unprecedented. It's consolidating its basis as a safe haven investment, which deviates from the actual industrial use, which hasn't really changed during the year, right? It's just being clustered and very focused on maintaining this investment value based on Liberation Day announcements, like you mentioned. What it's difficult to try to pin out is where the price is going to be in the long run, right? We've already surpassed expectations of most investment banks for 2026. We haven't even, we're just in the beginning of the second quarter of 2024, so 2025, sorry, and that's provides a lot of pivotal points in how fast or how quick are you going to re-rack your cutoffs to determine what kind of ore you're going to mine in the future. And that's going to be the risk really moving forward, right? And that's kind of what helps us in our firm having such good prospects for high-grade mineralization. That's what really makes any project interesting and profitable or auspicious for the future.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the fundamentals driving gold, a lot of people would say that gold actually went up under circumstances where normally gold does not perform well. A high interest rate environment, this broad stock market was ripping, the US dollar was showing great strength. Now we're seeing a reversal of all of those trends, at least to some extent. Post Liberation Day, the broad market has made quite a correction, starting to rally a little bit today, and we're having, some volatility there. But nonetheless, now Trump is calling on Jerome Powell to cut interest rates. The US dollar is starting to show weakness, and the broad market is also starting to show some weakness. Do you think these could all potentially be catalysts for the next leg up in this gold bull market?
I mean, for sure it can, right? When the market corrects, usually you go to a safe haven, whatever that safe haven may be. And today it's gold. But even the percentage of gold being funded through ETFs is not enough. So that's what it is telling you, that there is some physical drive for this investment besides financial markets, and that's what's collecting this new interest. So if this new interest makes the ETF benchmark even increase, that's going to create a new basis for future price, right? When we hit 1,500, nobody thought that we were going to hit 2,000. Nobody thought we were going to hit 3,000, and now we're getting into a new normality. And it's interesting that you mentioned interest rates, because gold used to be also the safe haven for interest rate. You used to be able to lend yourself at a gold forward rate that was much cheaper than traditional rates. That's not being the case anymore. We're seeing gold forward and gold lease rates go all the way up to almost double digits for mid-cap producers. So it's something that it's unprecedented. It dislocates traditional investment rationale. Uh, but to be very um, straightforward, I think this is probably the best time to have an asset or be a gold producer. So if you cannot revert operations at these levels, yeah, very unlikely it's going to happen, no?
Yeah, some very good thoughts there. I want to switch over to silver for a moment. It's become a very important industrial commodity, and we've heard a lot of talk about supply deficits over the course of the last several years. Do you think we're nearing the point when those supply deficits start to be reflected in the silver price?
Well, I think silver has always followed gold in PGMs, and all the other PGMs are still thriving. They have a very direct correlation. The difference with silver is that pure silver mines are not as common as silver credits on concentrates. So what is happening is that the largest silver producers are industrial polymetallic players that have huge silver premiums. So the cost of going to market is becoming more difficult with lower cutoff rates, right? And what you said also resonates interestingly what is happening industrially. When you lower cutoff grade, it means that you need to move more ore and have a bigger momentum or a bigger operation in the works to extrude the same value. So yes, we're still getting 1 ounce, but we're getting 1 ounce with twice as much tonnage, with twice as much power usage. So that will have an impact eventually on industrial consumption because that's what's driving scarcity, the ability to revert all these concentrate premiums into refined metal.
And what about silver's role as a monetary metal? Because some would point to the fact that it's potentially become a strictly industrial commodity. I believe at this point in time, it's over 50% of demand that's coming on the industrial side. I've heard numbers as high as 65, 70%, with the remaining being investment demands. What are your thoughts there? And do you think we might see more investment demand due to all the economic uncertainty, particularly if gold continues to climb? Do you think silver could benefit from that as well?
I mean, for sure it will. And the way I interpret it, or my opinion, is that it's always been the cheaper alternative, right? Today, working capital on gold production is huge. Moving 35, 50 kilograms requires $7 million of net cash. So silver becomes a much more palatable or digestible investment if you don't have that bandwidth. And that's what price will do for you, no? But yeah, I think there's going to be a use. It's going to be always a secondary use in terms of financial instruments. But it's always been on mints. It's always been the more accessible, I mean, affordable instrument to vest. So yeah.
And let's talk about copper for a moment here too. This is another metal where we've seen a lot of reports come out. S&P Global published a big one talking about the deficits and the amount of supply needed to meet those deficits is nowhere near to coming online anytime soon. I wonder what your thought is on the overall macro picture when it comes to the copper sector and the catalyst that you potentially see driving that metal.
So copper aiming at $5 a pound, which is not that far from there today. It's again something not precedented. I remember when we crossed the $2 mark and we thought everything was mineable in the world. But the reality is also has a lot to do with a very large consolidated producers, right? The big five players in the world need deposits that are closer to 1 trillion tons of proven reserves. That's taken 7, 8 years to cubicate and then another 6 to 7 years to get into production. So we're stretching mine production in a very long in a very you have to be very patient for that to come into the market. So that's really what is dislocating the demand supply today. What a lot of people or a lot of the market is not seeing is that there is middle market opportunities to put production into 10,000 per day plants in somewhere, in Latin America, in Mexico. And those opportunities are probably going to look a lot better today with price above 450. The second largest refinery in Mexico is being divested because the cost of capital of procuring concentrate is unaffordable for most mid-cap players. And the large players want to auction these deposits for a long time And until you see actual value, it's you don't know what the market is going to be in 10 years. Um, but that's a huge challenge today, that the control is controlled by very few players, and none of them US, right? Which proposes a bigger challenge for most of the US capital and liquidity as well.
Excellent insights there, Gerardo. I now want to switch to discussing Liberty Star Minerals and how it fits into this whole picture. I'll turn now to Chairman Peter O'Haron and Jay Crawford, Vice President of Field Operations, to break things down for us. Let's start by giving us an overview of the company. Peter, could you start with that?
Sure, we're an exploration company focused in kind of southeast Arizona in the Brisbane area, Tombstone area of Arizona. We like to say 365-day mining cycle per year with no seasonal issues that you get up north. We have it's a polymetallic discovery, probably one of the largest copper footprints in the Western Hemisphere, and then one of the highest gold concentrations that were announced last year. We found on our Red Rock property due to Jay and his team doing some channel sampling out there. We've seen some higher concentrations through some historic drill holes. Jay followed his instinct. It was not only near surface, on surface gold deposits, and he followed the gold like they did in the old days and found some really very interesting concentrations there. So it's an exciting property. We have copper, gold, silver, moly, rare earths, you name it, even cobalt looks like might be out there. So very exciting.
Well, Jay, let's talk about your two main projects. Maybe you could dive a little deeper into them for us and provide some color. First up, walk us through your premier property, the Hay Mountain project. What milestones have you reached there so far? What's the plan moving forward, and what has you excited about that project?
Yeah, so we've been working on the Hay Mountain project for some years now, and we've done geology, geochemistry, and geophysics. And they all reinforce each other. To kind of help direct us where to place a drill, because a lot of it's undercover. We just finished a two drill hole program 2 years ago, and you know, we just need to go out and continue where we left off there. And for the gold, which is the properties are adjacent to each other. Um, yeah, the gold is near surface, at surface. So there's not much, you just got to go out and find where it's at.
And Peter, do you have any thoughts to add when it comes to both of your main projects, the Hay Mountain and then also Red Rock Canyon? What's going on there in terms of milestones achieved and the next steps moving forward?
Sure. So I think that the Hay Mountain, we want to finish out our drilling program there, but we're talking about an enormous footprint. It's hard to overstate. We're talking about over 13,000 acres of property here. A little less than half that makes up Red Rock. So we're able to do a little bit more in Red Rock because of the near surface deposit on the gold, and quite frankly, gold prices at an all-time high really forces you in that direction. So I think what you'll see is some more work, Jay and his team out at Red Rock. We're looking, Gerardo is out, as I am, looking for partners and joint venture partners for Hay Mountain, which is it's a generational deposit, and it will take, a major or mid-major mining company to exploit that.
Excellent. And when we're looking at near-term catalysts for the company, things that shareholders can look forward to potentially adding value to the company in the near term here in 2025, what would you say that those main catalysts are, Peter?
Well, I think expansion of the Red Rock near term gold would be one that gets our attention to really map out the boundaries of that. I think what Jay proved in his last round of channel sampling is that he's got a pretty good line on where the gold is going, how wide it is, how deep it is, and certainly at what we think are some of the highest concentrations reported anywhere last year.
Now, Peter, you traveled to Washington recently for high-level meetings with congressional leaders to discuss the need for U.S. investment in exploration and development of critical minerals. Obviously, the Trump administration has come out and they're looking to fast track a lot of projects. They're looking to bring the production of critical minerals back onshore to not have to rely on China and other potential adversarial countries. Can you reveal any details from those meetings, and how do you think this administration could assist in projects like yours?
What's interesting, when I met with them, I told them I went back and looked at my emails. My emails go back 6 years. So my last email that I sent 6 years ago before I went up there this time, I told them that if China ever wanted to invade Taiwan, they don't need to use soldiers. They can just cut off rare earths. And literally, the Wednesday I was there, China announced they were cutting off rare earth supplies to the U.S. China doesn't have to fire any bullets. They own 95% of the refining capacity in the world for rare earths. They can just, that monopoly, it shuts down your high tech sector, shuts down your defense sector, cell phones, you name it. All of those have rare earths in it. And we have one facility in the U.S., one mine at Mountain Pass in California. And then the government gave them about $30 million to build a battery facility in Fort Worth. And then they gave Lynas out of Australia a little over 120 million to build a refining facility in Seadrift, or down by Corpus Christi, Texas. So my message to them was, you've got, you're working on the refining side of this, but you won't have anything to refine unless you discover it. And that's where we are. And so you need to be committing some dollars to the discovery part of this. And we have enough rare earths and enough copper to show you where the U.S. is going to get that supply for the next 2 generations. And they were very receptive. 6 years ago, I think they probably thought it was just a lonely guy yelling out into the valley. But now it's an entirely different reception there, because critical minerals are really, it's a national security issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to get some idea in terms of the timeline for the company moving forward, 2025 and beyond. We talked about some of the upcoming catalysts and your plans for both of the properties. How do you see things developing? What's the timeline that you have in mind for these two projects? Are you looking to bring them into production yourself? Are you looking to get acquired by a bigger player? What's the ultimate goal here, and how long do you think it might take you?
Well, I think on the Red Rock, on the gold deposit, that is something that we could do in-house and bring into production ourselves. I think the copper deposit, just because of the size of it, would probably lend itself more to a joint venture with a larger player. But certainly the gold deposit, we could bring that in. We could even do a micro mine in the meantime as we're developing that larger deposit. But I think what we're going to see is a lot more efficient permitting processes through the government. I think we're going to see that change a little bit, where the Liberation Day may have added uncertainty into the markets and led to a movement into gold. That also is going to, that administration is probably going to lead to a more streamlined permitting process. So I think that would benefit Red Rock. I think you could see us do that ourselves.
Well, let's gain some more insight into the team behind the company, starting with yourself, Peter, and then Jay, you can talk about your background as well. Gerardo, you can hop back on and talk about your background as well, and then any other color you could provide on the other team members and how you plan to leverage their expertise to move these projects forward.
So I've been involved with Liberty Star, I want to say it's over 15 years. So I've kind of seen it through all its iterations and all of its ups and downs. And I pay homage to our founder, Jim Briscoe, who saw these deposits for what they were. And Jay and I have both met experienced geologists on site, and multiple geologists have said, we've walked this property for 20 years and we never knew what we were looking at until Jay picked it up and showed them on the ground what they were looking at. And now I think they're impressed. And I think there's a little bit of validation for what Briscoe saw in the very beginning. I think it's an exciting project, and it attracts people like Gerardo, who have 30 years in the mining sector, been doing deals in the Western Hemisphere for those years, and it attracts people like Nick Hammerly and Salim Elsmari, who kind of come out of the financing side. So we are focused on joint venturing and financing to get to the next level, and we've attracted some really top-notch experienced people in that area. And then Patricia Medeiros, who's been with the company since day one. She kind of runs everything behind the scenes. And then I don't think there's anyone more knowledgeable about that area down there in Arizona than Jay Crawford. So it's a great team.
And Jason, background on yourself and what caused you to join the company, and any other color you could provide on how you're working to advance these projects.
Okay, yeah. So I started with Liberty Star in 2006, and I like to refer to myself as a professional prospector. But I've worked with many geologists, a lot of industry leading experts, so I have kind of a great base of people, if I have questions, to help field and guide me through, the steps that we need to move the projects forward. The steps forward, I think right now are going to be in the near term, geophysics. We want to do some ground IP. I think that's necessary, and as long, we're going to continue doing geology sample collection along the way, and just everything we can to improve our knowledge base on the ground out there.
And as his
Fantastic.
back feels better, he'll do channel sampling on the side. It's quite a physical process. I think we found that out.
And Gerardo, some information on your own background. Obviously, you have a ton of experience in the mining sector, as you kind of displayed when we were breaking down the macro. Talk to us about what attracted you to Liberty Star, and how you're working to move these projects forward.
Of course. So I joined in the third quarter of last year as a member of the board. And my background is in investment banking. I started my career in Citigroup, being an analyst for metals and mining in South America. So that poised me and put me in the ground, or the boots in the ground, of a lot of prospective development projects in the region. And what it's interesting is that I've seen the transition from a project seeing development to closing within 3 years to 15 years in these 25 plus years. So it's very challenging what lies ahead, and what we're trying to build at Liberty is a very unique, unhinged model that has the ability to come to production on its own terms in our gold deposit through a partnership with an operating partner, while we develop or option the larger copper deposits, right? And I see our firm more than just an exploration and development firm in the U.S. being a platform to acquire more strategic interest in the region, because I think we do have the team to prospect and pick the right operating players in different countries in the Americas, where we can have oversight and easy access to some of the assets that we might not see in continental US. So that provides us like a very unique opportunity to face the challenge ahead.
And Peter, I'll end with you and opening the floor to you. Anything that we haven't yet covered, anything that you think it's important to emphasize to potential shareholders about Liberty Star, the floor is yours.
Yeah, what I would just say is that again, to kind of go back to the size of the deposits that we're looking at, these are generational opportunities. I think that was one of the points that I've made to Gerardo and Nick on the board, is that rarely do you get a chance to come in and be a part of something that can live beyond you, live beyond your children. It's a multi-generational opportunity here.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to put links in the description below to the company website, as well as social media profile for people who want to follow along. Gentlemen, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate your insight into both the gold, silver, and copper markets, as well as Liberty Star Minerals. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.